Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name's Sam Jacobs from 6 Degrees Investor Relations. I'll be hosting today's presentation from Echo IQ Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Dustin Haines. So in today's presentation, Mr. Haines will talk to recent market developments and also provide an update on the latest initiatives in the company's US commercialization strategy. After the presentation, we'll commence a Q&A, which will be hosted by Echo IQ Chief Commercial Officer, Dion Stratum. That will comprise both written submissions and a live question segment. So a recording of the webinar will also be available on Echo IQ's media channels later today, but for now, I'll throw it over to Dustin to kick things off. So Dustin, the floor is yours.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Sam. Well, good morning, maybe good afternoon. I'm hoping not good evening for any folks, but maybe there's some folks from the US dialing in. I'm calling from not so sunny Maine. I've been on a couple day holiday and it's been rainy and overcast skies and not the best weather. So we've had to dig out some of our cold weather clothes to get out here. But I do want to thank everybody for taking the time to meet with me and Echo IQ on the call today. Probably not the circumstance we all wanted to be on in a last minute hurry to do a webinar, but I think we'll address some of the questions and concerns everybody has, and I will definitely do my best to walk everybody through where we started in the process and where we are currently in the process. I think hopefully at the end of the call, everybody will feel fairly confident about where we are. And while it's the first time I've had to explain a setback with the organization, I think you'll see that this is a small one, and I think we're going to be very confident about how we're going to move forward. So look, I'm really excited mostly for this call to answer any questions you guys may have. And for those who sent questions in earlier, thank you very much. We've got all those. So Dion will be working through those questions. But of course, as we go through the call, take the opportunity to chat. Not always the easiest feature, but if you want to hit the chat button and send in a question, Dion will be available to collate those questions and he'll ask as many as we can. So what I want to do is I'm going to take a few minutes to walk you through the current process of where we're at with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Diseases. That's the American Medical Association who works through the panel on reviewing our technology for reimbursement. I'll walk you through a little bit about how we got to where we are. I'm a bit frustrated with where we ended up here, and I'm sure everybody is. So we put a new process in place to ensure that this won't happen again. But I also want to make sure that for all of you, and I think of you all as a team member of Echo IQ, that you guys all understand our process as well, because sometimes these working with the regulatory bodies, you actually have time for how you want to address them and their questions, and I'll walk you guys through that. I'm going to share the letter so you guys can see it from them. And then I thought I'd take a few minutes just to reiterate kind of where we are in terms of our reimbursement strategy overall, our plan, and then what we're going to be doing in 2025 to continue to achieve success. And I know the vast majority of you have questions about how we're going to, continue to move forward with, subscription model, with revenue, with integrations. I'm happy to talk about all that. I have no less confidence today than I had, in the last several weeks in terms of what we're going to do to be successful for Echo IQ. So if you'll indulge me a few minutes, I'll go through a couple slides and then I'll definitely open up for Q&A because I know everybody is anxious to ask questions and hopefully in the spirit of where we're moving with questions, you guys will get many of them answered as I'm going through this. So I thought the best way to do this, thank you, Dion. I thought the best way to do this was just simply to put up the letter. So for many of you, you know that we went into submitting our application in February. We passed the first hurdle, which was actually getting the application accepted, and which got us to the second stage, which was getting a meeting in May. So we had a meeting with the CPT panel in early May this year, and then during that meeting, we were to review our application, address any questions the panel may have, and then of course we were going to find out at the end of May, which we just did in this letter, what the outcomes were going to be. So I want to remind everybody on this so that this is a process. This is an iterative process to an extent. I think a number of companies have been incredibly successful about getting it across the line the first time with the CPT panel. but the vast majority of companies end up having 1, 2, or 3 meetings with the committee to be able to get their application approved for reimbursement. And so this is, well, I thought we were going to be incredibly successful the very first time. Sometimes you run into some challenges, and we learn from those challenges, and we're going to put our plan back in place to submit by June 11th, and then we'll be having a meeting with them in September. The good thing with the panel is you can come in multiple times for these discussions with them. In fact, I was sitting in the room with a couple of folks, and they were on their third and fourth time in the room as they were presenting their case. I don't anticipate that to happen for us. We've learned very clearly. We've got very clear feedback from them, which you can see in this letter that I'll go over, and we know exactly how we're going to address it going into the meeting in September. So what we're working on now is a new application that will be in the next couple of weeks by June 11th, and then we anticipate to be back in New York for the meeting with them in September. So here's the letter. And so if you remember right, we were looking to get a category 3 code. This is a brand new code, which is actually means you actually write the code yourself. So we actually had to create a code. We had to create a description of the code, and we had to create a description of the services provided. So oftentimes, that requires you to be creative in the way you're writing it. And sometimes that requires you to work with the committee members to see if you could get a code that's close to or existing in the market. So in this case, different than what happens with the FDA, and the fact that when you go to the FDA, you actually do what's called a pre-sub meeting. And I think many of you guys know this, but the pre-sub meeting is a chance for you to talk to the FDA before you submit your application. You get some feedback, you get some criticisms, you may get some direction, but from that pre-sub, then you know kind of in general how your application should go. Unfortunately, with the AMA, when we submit to them for the CPT code, the first time you get feedback is when you sit in the room with them and you have a discussion. And so this is exactly what we have here. So this is the feedback we received from them. We understand that process now, and then we will be resubmitting. So here's what the letter states. So you can see 2 highlighted areas. There's 2 areas that we that the panel felt that we did not meet the panel's requirements. The first was on a proposed descriptor is unique, well-defined, and describes a procedure service which is likely identified and distinguished from existing procedures and services already in CPT. Now, we have a disagreement with the panel here on this one, and I'll show you in the letter how we could have addressed that. We have a disagreement here. We think that we were very clearly defining our procedure and our process. We were trying to create a code that was very unique and specific to EchoIQ's EchoSolve AS program, which is for aortic stenosis. But the panel did feel that we needed to be much more broad in our approach and look at other existing AI models that are currently in the space. We know that there's obviously one for heart failure that Ultramics, which is currently in the market today, has in heart failure. There's also a number of radiology, oncology, and mammography technologies out there. So we needed to do a better job in their mind to clearly define how our AI was different from the other AI technologies and tools out there, and specifically how it meets the needs for aortic stenosis. We have a consultant in place who's helped us already with this. So we actually been writing that over the week. And I've been incredibly excited about the opportunity now to explain this better to the category and the CPT panel. So I feel very confident that that first criteria will be met. In fact, we believe we met that criteria, but we don't feel like we want to challenge the panel at this moment in time. So we will just go back and resubmit. The second one is the one that's interesting. So the second one here you see says the structure and content of the proposed code descriptor accurately reflects the procedure or service as typically performed. So we had a very robust conversation, and if you can imagine how this panel meeting looks like, if you've ever watched any of the news in the U.S., but you have it very similar in the Parliament in Australia, oftentimes when folks are called in, there's a committee panel sitting in a big room, and then there's a small little table in front of them with people and microphones. That's where we were. So there were about 200 people in the room. We had about 20 panel members, and they were asking questions. This is where we spent the most part of our time. So I do believe we didn't give them enough information on how if you can go back, sorry, how the procedure is typically performed. And so the questions were around how is the technology presented to the physician? How does the aided diagnostic tool get read and interpreted? And then who reads, interprets, and then ultimately does the final report? Now, I think we did a good job explaining it in the room, but I think the panel felt that we had a little bit more work to do in terms of explaining to the cardiologists and the technicians who is the one who's going to be doing the service, how does that service get added into the final report, and who does the work to get that done. So we've actually brought in a couple of our key strategic advisors who we believe are going to be incredibly helpful for us on this. Both of them are cardiologists in the United States. Many of you have heard Dr. Jordan Strom, who is the head of the Beth Israel Medical Deaconess Harvard Medical School program. So he's helped us, and we've got another physician that we'll share with the community later, who are helping us now to help us describe this typically performed procedure. In fact, what we're looking to do for the future when we go back in September is actually have them join us as part of the panel discussion so that they can be there to explain this. I think we have a very clear story of how that will work. We need to get the application done. So I feel very confident that the two areas where the panel felt we didn't meet the criteria, we've got a solution. And the first one, I think we disagree and we're going to write it differently. And the second one, I think we just need to make it very clear and we're going to rewrite that. So you can see these are the two. I feel very confident that we're going to be able to address what the panel's needs are in these two. The great thing, it's only two, and these two are fairly easy for us to address. Now, I do want to make a point here. If you look at this letter, you can see, and this kind of goes to where we're at today and why we're actually on this call. You can see that there was part of the letter here does state that, if you have a request to the panel, but we believe that they had reviewed ours in error, that you have 14 days to actually appeal. Now, we were under review on this appeal to determine whether we were going to appeal during this discussion. Now, I think we could have appealed the first one, but unfortunately, there was an external website that was picked up, some speculative information around what was happening with the CPT, and we felt it was most important to get in front of you guys and address that more quickly than focus on whether we were going to appeal. But I do think it's an important point for us to all think about. So when I have this again coming in September, is that if we feel comfortable in that first 14 days, we may appeal, because again, this is a negotiation. We may appeal. And I want all you guys to know that we will be as transparent as possible and get you the information as fast as possible. But at the same time, as a company, we will take our time to really understand whether we want to, utilize those 14 days. In this case, I think it's fine. Unfortunately, we had a bit of external news that came out, and we wanted to make sure that we were addressing that with you guys as quickly as possible. So what I want to just stop here because I think it's important that you guys see this letter. You can see what's in the letter. You understand what we're going to do as a plan. We will be back into the market in June to submit the application. We will be back with the panel in September, and I feel very confident that if we address these two parts of the criteria, that we will have a positive outcome and success for having the Category 3 code. So that's where we're at now. I think I want to address to make sure you guys all feel confident that we will definitely make sure we address any of the communications going forward. We've put a system in place, and obviously we can explain the human error factor here. Unfortunately, I had taken a couple of days off. This was one of those perfect storms. A couple of days off during this process. One of my team members who was receiving the letter from the AMA was sick. It came in on a Sunday. He didn't look at his emails, and by Monday morning, we had some speculative news out on an exterior website, and we had to make sure that we got this information out to you guys as quickly as possible. So going forward, we're going to make sure that multiple people will receive be points of contact for the AMA, so that there's multiple people in the company that receive the letter. And typically these letters come, late in the evening, Australia time. So we'll make sure that we have somebody there that can address it. And then we'll get that news out to everybody as fast as possible. The intent was never not to get this news out to you guys. We would have done it within 24 to 48 hours. Our goal was to review whether in that 14-day window we wanted to make an appeal. And in this case, we're not going to. So feel confident and assured that we'll make sure that we get news out to you guys as fast as possible. I still feel like we have a lot of good opportunities here to continue to push on the panel what we're going to do for our Category 3 code. We will be back in the room. I feel confident about that. And I feel confident that we'll have success at the end. But for those that sent in a few questions before, the questions were around, can we do this multiple times? The answer is yes. I don't want to do this multiple times. It's a lot of work. I think we have a very good story to tell in our application, and we have a very good technology, and I believe that we will have the right support in the room. And my confidence level just goes up from here that September will be a successful meeting for us. All right, so I'm going to stop there. I think it's important for you guys to ask any questions you have around this technology and the code. I just want to go, if you can go to the next slide, Dion, just to remind everybody where we're going forward. We did talk to you guys. I think most of you who talked to me or have joined a webinar with me have seen this slide. So one of the things that we were working on is getting the miscellaneous code, which we have. We'll continue to work through the miscellaneous code. This is never the best code. It's a good code. It's fine, but it doesn't give you as good a coverage as you want. Obviously, now we'll change the slides to change that to meeting for September, and then anticipate having a code by the end of this year. A couple of the things that we will be doing to enhance our second bullet there is the number of societies that we had available to provide written feedback. I'm asking now those societies to actually join us in the room in New York so that they can actually have an opportunity to come up to the microphone and provide their support for our technology in the room versus having any support from in writing. And I think that's going to be important. So the three societies we're working with are the American Heart Association, the American Cardiology Association, and the American Society of Echocardiography. So we'll be addressing that. And then we're still very confident and clear on our path to get to category. And then Dion, if you can go to the next slide. And just to remind everybody, if you remember that we had really three key strategies that we needed to employ for this year, and they have not changed. Hospital integrations is still our number one critical strategy. And we'll be continuing to update you guys in the market as we get more partnership agreements in place. We just had the SciImage partnership that we announced to all of you just a couple weeks ago. We'll be making another couple announcements, hopefully in the near future, that will be continuing to build on our hospital integrations. That's going to lead us to revenue. And while I would have liked to have a category 3 code in July for our revenue to really start to matriculate, we're still going to continue with the subscription-based model. And that miscellaneous code simply provides it at a smaller discount, and we'll be working towards that. And we'll be happy to share that with folks as we start to see some of our subscription-based models kick into place over the summer. And then, of course, the main focus for us is going to be ensuring that our heart failure product will be kicked off hopefully in the middle of summer for submission to the FDA with expected clearance sometime at the end of this year. And that's still on track. And we had a good meeting with the FDA, as many of you saw in our announcements, and we're anticipating to have the Mayo Clinic validation study kicking off very shortly, which will allow us then to move into our final phase of submission for heart failure. So those are the three criteria. These have not changed. We will continue to work forward with the integrations. Integrations will lead us to revenue. I still feel very confident you'll start seeing revenue coming from us over the summer and into the end of the year. Obviously, it slows us down a little bit with the category 3 code, but let's all remember one of the big payoffs for us in acceleration is heart failure, because it does have a category 1 code already existing in the market. And we anticipate that to be a very clear opportunity for us to accelerate into the market into 2026. So I'm going to stop there because I think we have about 45-minute schedule. So I want to make sure that I've got everybody's chance to ask any questions. So Dion, maybe I'll kick it to you for the questions, and then we'll try to answer some online as well as some that came in before the call.
Thanks, Dustin. So I'll go through the questions we received previously and also or prior, and also those online. But the first question we had is, how will this impact revenue considering the 3-month trial that we mentioned previously?
Yeah, great question. I mean, obviously, the 3-month free trial is still in place for all of our customers. We've got a few of our customers who are getting ready to come up on the end of their 3-month free trial. So I know the sales team is actively negotiating with them now on a subscription-based model. So what we'll be basing this off of is obviously the miscellaneous code instead of category 3. So we knew that those codes are responsible for considerably less coverage of patients. So what you may see is a few smaller subscription-based contracts coming over the summer until we get closer to the category 3, which will allow us to have more robust subscription-based. But we're actively working right now to start converting those into subscription-based models to start generating revenue. And for me, the big part here is I want the customers to get comfortable writing us a check. Maybe it's a small check on the first month or two, and then it'll be a bigger check as the reimbursement improves, but we will continue to push forward to reimbursement. So I don't anticipate major impacts to the revenue, because again, we assumed that revenue was going to be building at the end of 2025 and then accelerating with heart failure in 2026.
Thanks, Dustin. That takes us to the next question. It says, regarding the category 3 code, when can we expect to have clinicians billing and receiving reimbursement for the use of EchoSolve using this code?
Yeah, for the category three, as soon as we get through the process with the AMA, you will get a notification that the code is available and active. And so, if we have it in September, the meeting, we will actually have by November or December opportunity for them to use the category three code, at that time. Until then, they can use the miscellaneous code, which is a 93799, which again, we've said very clearly it's not going to get the biggest amount of coverage, but it is still a code available.
Okay. Should we expect any short-lived income by utilizing the miscellaneous code in the interim?
Yeah, for sure. And so we're working on a subscription-based model that obviously, I think for many of you, if you saw my slide talking about a graduated model. So this will start at the low end of that graduated model. And then as miscellaneous code moves to category three, then that model will increase based off of the reimbursement criteria there. And then obviously category one, that moves to basically full coverage. So we have a graduated model. So we will see subscription-based models that will reflect the miscellaneous code versus category three.
Thanks, Dustin. The next question is around heart failure. It says here that the heart failure reimbursement model is different, and you need to apply for a category three code for heart failure. Can you go directly to category one? And can you confirm why this is different from a remuneration perspective?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And thank you guys for being super insightful and understanding kind of how our process works. So yes, I think on the reason heart failure is different is because there has been a competitor over the last couple of years working very hard to get the category one code done. And so what happens in that space is as long as your indications for usage for a technology is approved by the FDA, and it's similar to what's currently being billed for in the market today, then you can piggyback is what that's called, but you can utilize that code. So the company is Ultramics, so they have a heart failure technology in this space that uses artificial intelligence just like we do. Now they're an image reading software program that is an aided diagnostic. We believe based off of the current discussions with the FDA that our indications for use will be similar enough that we will be able to use their category one code. Aortic stenosis, on the other hand, did not have a category one. No, there were no other companies. We were the first company to come into the marketplace. So we were creating that technology code. But for heart failure, somebody has paved the way. So in some cases, we're going to benefit from them paving the way. In other cases, with aortic stenosis, there will be a company in the future that may benefit from me paving the way. And that's typically how this works. You start with creating a code with a new technology, and then other companies can come in and actually use that technology. So heart failure is different for us because there is a code in the market today.
Thanks, Dustin. The next question is around the integrations. So having 36 new integrations, can you explain to us how hard or easy it is to integrate? Bottom line is, how quick will the clinicians be up and running to use the product?
Yeah, so that is the difference between an individual hospital integration like we did with Beth Israel versus a strategic partner integration like we're doing with SciImage. So with the strategic partner integration, the 36 hospitals all are part of a SciImage platform. So what we're doing is actually integrating with SciImage in the background. Actually, we're doing that on his servers. So once we integrate with him directly, then every hospital that we turn on simply gets turned on through SciImage's portal. So the nice thing is once we integrate once, we can service many. And so we're anticipating the 36 hospitals to be coming up online very shortly because we're integrating in the background with SciImage as we speak. So those hospitals went free trial with those customers because I want my integration team to be in there to ensure that working correctly within the hospital. They're getting the reports the way they want those to be done because we can do a bit of tailoring and customizing. But in general, when you see us do a partnership agreement, that is an opportunity for us to integrate much faster to a hospital than when you do it directly with an individual hospital like we did with Beth Israel, which took us about 3.5 months or so to do.
Thank you. More of a general question, but what are the plans to expand the US investor base?
Yeah, great question. We've been working quite diligently, and I know I'm trying to do the best I can to balance this on behalf of each and every one of you as a shareholder in terms of how we generate commercialization in the US, but also make sure we're getting our investors in the US built up as a good portfolio. So the good thing is we're invited to a number of different opportunities to speak to investors, whether these are institutional investors, whether they're high net worth investors, or whether they're simply folks who are interested in either through private equity or venture capital. And so I'm having a lot of these conversations now. Many of the investors are quite eager and excited about what we're looking at for the future. So we're building a nice investor portfolio. I have to say I've been probably in front of about 200 or 300, of these investors in different categories over the last 6 months, and we're continuing to have opportunities to present and tell our story. And I think that's really an opportunity for them to start to participate. So we're seeing some of that. Obviously, now that we have the OTC, some of the investors are interested in wanting to potentially buy on the OTC. But I can tell you a lot of them have tried to find institutional opportunities in Australia and just buy it on the ASX because it's a much bigger exchange for them.
There's 3 questions on this one, so I'm going to try and combine them, but it's all roughly the same question. And it really is about, can you explain how Echo's heart failure AI model is similar or different to what's currently in the market?
Sure. Yeah. Now you guys are going to test me on my technological ability to explain things. But I think I can do it in simple ways. So the company that's currently in the heart failure space is a company called Ultromics, and I'm sure many of you have done a bit of research and looked out there. I love their technology. Actually, it's really interesting. I know the CEO fairly well. Unfortunately, what their technology does is it takes the current images that they're receiving from the echocardiogram, and they simply try to read the images better. They basically do an image uploading program. They've trained the model to read the image and to scan the images. Their technology is interesting. Unfortunately, what happens for them in this space and why we're different is that when an image is missed or when there's data points that are missed, their model is unable to be able to extrapolate and actually do an imputation. Sorry, guys, late evening for me. An imputation like our model can do. Because remember, with our model, we don't take the images. We take the data that sits behind those images, whether those are measures or metrics on those images. And we take those 120 data points or 140 data points, and we actually create what we believe is a phenotypic model of that patient's heart. And because of that, we uniquely are set up to be different without relying on the images. And I think where many of these image reading companies, such as Ultromics, struggle is that these are large data files. So oftentimes it takes a huge amount of compute to be able to upload those data files into whatever cloud-based system they're using, to be able to then do their calculations in their compute time and then send those files back. And I think the biggest challenge with these companies is it's taking them sometimes minutes, but oftentimes hours, if not a day or more, to get the data back to the customer. It just is not a user-friendly technology when you're trying to put it in workflow. We've tried to streamline that process by simply saying we don't need the images. We use the raw data, the metrics, and the measurements behind those images, which allow us to do our compute time within seconds. So we typically are delivering the result back within 3 seconds to the customer, and it sits directly in their structured report. This allows us to be unique and different. So we not only beat them on speed, but we actually start to beat them on the ability to predict through the phenotype what is the ultimate cause for that patient. And so if it's heart failure in this example, we can diagnose that patient with degrees of heart failure, whether that's somebody who has high or medium or low.
Thanks, Dustin. Do potential licensing deals with manufacturers and pharma companies now become more of a priority in the near term, given that there's no dependence on the CPT code with them?
I wouldn't say that it becomes more of a focus. I think it's always been a strategic focus for us to ensure that our technology is seen in the best possible light when it comes to strategic partners. Now, I will tell you, obviously, these conversations are happening on a pretty regular basis, whether that's somebody thinking of a licensing deal, somebody thinking of a partnership deal, or somebody thinking of simply just wanting this to be part of a platform. And I can tell you that we are not prioritizing or deprioritizing this discussion. We are keeping that as a strategic focus for us. And if a strategic partner partner were to come to the table, we obviously would be very active and interested in that conversation. But at the same time, what creates the most significance for us as an organization is that we can also start to continue down the path of commercialization. That creates value. That creates value for each and every one of you. That creates value for the organization, and that makes any strategic partner discussions, even more robust when you can actually show, the ability to commercialize and revenue in the market. So, do I focus on that more now? No, I will continue to focus on it as I was before, but we will also make sure that we continue our commercialization strategy.
Thank you. And then the last question we have so far at this stage is, are you concerned that Ultromics may pivot their software to mimic our approach, or are there IP protections in place to prevent this from happening?
Two parts of that question. One, I think there is definitely strong IP protections in place to prevent that. And two, I don't think, given the current nature of the software technology that they're working on, that they will have the ability to pivot. So I think what we're seeing is a very clear differentiation in the market from the technology and the way that we use our AI algorithm versus what others in the market have done. So if you look at what they've done in terms of research and development, they've continued down the path of continuing to look at these image reading recognition software programs. I think what their focus is going to be on is reducing time. And that may be very challenging for them, and that's where they'll focus. Whereas I think we continue to go down the path of focusing on this phenotyping and looking at the raw measures and metrics. And we believe that the technology and the data that we'll produce from the Mayo Clinic, will be robust to differentiate us in the market. But the IP protection is still there as well, and we will continue to enforce that as we see any competitors come in the space.
Thanks, Dustin. With SciImage, we've got an existing agreement. Do you have any idea of how many hospitals they have in total?
Yeah, SciImage services 1,200 hospitals is what they service currently today.
Thank you. And then the last question we have at this stage, unless any more come through, is can you please provide an update on the Mayo clinical validation?
Sure. Yeah, this is an exciting one, and we're pretty excited about the process here. So we've been working directly with the Mayo team to work on the validation. So the protocol has been designed and developed. We're working with a couple external strategic advisors. So these are a couple of the cardiologists, very well known and very influential cardiologists in the United States, to give us feedback before we go in to do the study. So we're working on that right now. We anticipate that we'll be kicking off the Mayo study in the imminent few weeks coming up, because we believe that the protocol we have in place is right. But as I told the team, I said I don't want to do it fast. I want to do it right. So we want to make sure we get some feedback from a few of our cardiologists out there in this space to make sure the study is going to deliver exactly the way we want the outcomes to be in terms of getting the highest specificity and sensitivity for the model. So look forward to this space here. We'll make an announcement to everybody when we kick off the study, but the conversations with the Mayo Clinic and our external advisors is going very, very well.
Thanks, Dustin. One of the questions is around the fact that you just mentioned the 1,200 sites with SciImage. Do you know how many echoes they do roughly per site? And can you give us an expected revenue split with Sci and Echo?
Yeah, so we've been running the math with Sci here. Obviously, he's got a fairly healthy mix of small hospitals as well as large institutions. So really, he's around 3,000 to 4,000 on average per site. Obviously, that skews on a few of some of the bigger institutions they have. So we've been using 3,000 to 4,000 as our kind of average for what each SciImage site would have. And obviously, that depends where you are in the country. Some of those sites have significantly more than that they run annually, and then some of them are a little bit smaller. So I think 3 to 4 is a fairly reasonable number that we've been using. And then in terms of the revenue split, so when we have our strategic advisor discussions, and I can only be careful here about how we describe this because we haven't made this public. So we have a couple different ways. In some cases, we've got a few of the strategic partners who have been very interested in wanting to do a straight revenue share. So when we do that, I've told them then that means they're going to use their sales team to go out there and sell on our behalf. And I love that. I have no problem with that. They can put all their sales reps out there and sell our product to their customers. I have no problem of doing a revenue share in that case because they're doing the heavy lifting in terms of acquiring customers for us. And then in other cases, many of our strategic advisors have said, listen, it's our platform. We're in the hospital, and you're really just using our platform to come in and out to to be able to provide your data. So in that case, what we'll do is, and I'm calling it a toll service, but basically it's just a fee for service. So we're agreeing with them on a small fee. We may pay them every echo that we run across their platform. And so it's a chance for them to cover any of the administrative costs that may be done. And it's a chance for me to get on their platforms quickly. And when I talk about administrative costs, we're talking, a few pennies that we may pay them to be able to sit on their platform and run the tests across that. And really, if you think about it, I know I make things very simple oftentimes, but I've thought of it simply as we've just connected a bridge to their platform, and it's a toll bridge. So every time I go in there and take a piece of data, make a calculation and put it back on the platform, I may pay a couple pennies of a toll to get on there. So depending on the strategic partner, we have a discussion about how we work through those. And I'm happy to share those when we have something, that we can publicly share with Cy, but I can tell you he is discussing those exact terms with us now.
Dustin, I've got one more question back to heart failure. And it says here, how does the accuracy of Ultromix compare with that of our heart failure product? And what are the approximate cost savings versus Ultromix?
Yeah, so Ultromix has done a really good job of being able to demonstrate some health economics through their technology, and obviously it makes sense, and we'll be able to do the same. And I think I reminded everybody on this that we have commissioned the Harvard Health Economics team to run a health outcome study for us. So we just actually kicked off that conversation with them a couple weeks ago. So we'll have another health economic study for us as well on the aortic stenosis. So Ultromix has done a good job of producing some data to show that they have a cost savings within the system. Now, their challenge that they have is not necessarily their accuracy around their sensitivity of the technology. Their challenge is what's called indeterminates, and you can actually see this on a number of their data. Again, it's a really good technology, but if human error is part of this factor, which it is, and you have images that are poor quality or images that are unreadable or are simply images that don't exist because the stenographer may have missed some of those images, or maybe the quality is not great. The any software, and it's not just Ultromix, any software that use image reading technology will struggle to get a result because they simply can't read anything. There's nothing there, and they have what's called an indeterminate report. And I think this is where Ultromix is struggling. It takes them quite a while to get these reports back because these are big files. I think even on their own website, they say it can take minutes. In reality, in real world and real practice, it's taking hours to get back to the clinic with the results. And if they can't image or the image is not there, they provide what's called an indeterminate report. And I think this is frustrating for the current customers. Customers are really excited about getting it when it's accurate and when it's available. But if they get an indeterminate or it takes too long, it really doesn't meet the needs. AI's promise should be that it happens in real time and gives you accurate results. And that's where I think we're going to solve a major competitive problem that's in the market today. We do it very quickly and we do it very accurately.
Okay, well, I think we've exhausted all the questions on here, Dustin, which is a good thing. Unless anybody's got any final questions, we might get you to wrap up, but it doesn't look like any other questions have come through. So I'll hand it back to you, Dustin. Thank you.
Okay, great, Dion. Thank you. And thanks everybody for sticking in there with us. I think the main thing to reiterate for you guys is we've obviously we'll take any of the learnings we have from this scenario. I don't want to minimize the fact that we had this bit of speculative sell off that I think the market was a bit panicked, and that's on us to make sure that we give you guys the news as fast as possible. So we'll put process in place to ensure that doesn't happen again. But I also want to contract with each and every one of you on the call here that when we go into these meetings with the regulators, oftentimes we get a chance to do a bit of to and fro with them in terms of negotiating. And as you saw in that letter, we had 14 days. So our intent was to really review that file to see if we wanted to make an appeal. Now, in this case, we're going to go ahead and just redo our application. But stick with us on this. We'll make sure we have a new process in place to get you guys information the second we learn about it. But at the same time, that second may require us to take a day or two to want to really understand and review with the regulators, what kind of response we want to have. But we're going to always keep you guys as fully informed as possible, as transparent as possible. I'll share any information I have with you guys the second I have it. But we'll learn from this one. And I also just want to contract with you guys to make sure that, if you have questions, send those to us and we'll get those questions back to you guys as quickly as possible. But we'll make sure that the market has the information as fast as possible. The second piece of this is, look, none of this, while I don't want as a CEO to have a first setback being a reimbursement code, this doesn't minimize my confidence level at all in the technology and the ability for us to commercialize. I think we are on the path to really good success with this. If you just look at our peer integrations we've had so far, it shows that there's a lot of interest in the market to bring this in. We've got a very clear competitive moat when it comes to the way our technology works. And my confidence level is as high as it's ever been. I think we'll see revenue coming this year. And then I think the heart failure one's going to be really a chance for us to accelerate into next year. And I don't see any reason why we're not going to have continued success. So, my comment to everybody is, listen, watch what we say, watch what we do. Our goal is to continue to give you guys the most confidence possible in the technology and the company. And hopefully we'll continue to give you that good news over the next several weeks and months to come.
Yeah, look, thank you to Dustin and to Dion for that comprehensive presentation. I think we covered off on a lot of the key points and a lot of the investor queries through the presentation and that Q&A. So as Dustin says, the company will remain very engaged with the shareholder base. If anyone does have follow-up questions in the written format, feel free to use that email address that was on the webinar invite, which was lodged with the ASX. But for now, thanks to all our attendees today, to everyone who submitted questions. There was obviously a lot of interest from the floor, so we worked through those questions. And as mentioned earlier, a recording of this webinar will be available on EchoIQ's website and media platforms for review. Dustin and/or Dion, just before we go, any final comments to add at your end?
Unless Dion, any pressing questions came in at the end, then I would say no, other than just a huge thank you to everybody. You guys have stuck with us. I think you've seen what the company can do. I think you've seen the value of the organization, and while we had a small bump here, I think we're going to continue to see good momentum and build, with the shareholder base. And my goal is to make sure you guys have access to whatever questions you may have, either through written form or through these calls when we do them.
Well
nothing
noted.
from my end, just to say thank you for everyone's support, but nothing from my end.
Yeah, thank you as well, Dion. Okay, well, that wraps things up for now. Thanks again to our presenters and attendees. We'll see you next time.